Picture this, it's 1985, you're 30 years old, you help start a company in your parents' garage. That company is already a household name, and then one day you're told you're out. Not quietly, not gently, you are pushed out in a very public power struggle. That's what happened to Steve Jobs. Before that moment, Jobs was already an innovator, not in the abstract sense, in very real, concrete ways. He was obsessed with the idea that computers should not be intimidating. At a time when computers were beige boxes for engineers, Jobs pushed Apple to build machines regular people could actually use. The original Macintosh was radical for its time. A graphical user interface, icons, a mouse, no manuals thicker than the computer itself. Jobs cared deeply about design, typography, and how a product felt, not just how it worked. That thinking changed personal computing forever. But innovation has a cost. Jobs was also intense, demanding. He challenged everything. He did not believe in small tweaks or safe upgrades. He wanted leaps, and inside a growing company, that kind of mindset creates friction. Boards want predictability. Executives want smoother edges. Innovators want to tear things down and rebuild them. So Apple made a choice. They believed they could keep the success going by refining what already worked. And just like that, Jobs was gone. For an entrepreneur, especially one still young, that kind of exit is devastating. Your identity is wrapped up in the company. Jobs later said this was one of the most painful periods of his life, but it also stripped away something else, the pressure to protect success. He was free again, free to experiment, free to innovate without compromise. So he started over. He founded Next, a company that aimed at building the most advanced computer possible for education and research. They were not commercial hits, but the technology underneath them was groundbreaking. The operating system Jobs built in the Next would later become the foundation for the Mac and iOS. At the same time, Jobs acquired a small animation studio that would become Pixar. At the time, nobody knew if computer animation films would work. It was risky, unproven. Years passed without a big win, but Jobs believed in the idea. He funded it and let the creative people do their work. Eventually, Pixar released Toy Story and everything changed. That was the real startup journey, the startup grind nobody glamorizes. Years of building things the market does not yet understand. Years where the entrepreneur looks wrong, stubborn, or unrealistic. Meanwhile, Apple struggled. Without its core innovator, Apple released product after product. None of them were terrible, but none of them were special. They felt like variations of old ideas. Same concepts, new packaging. The company lost focus. Market share declined, innovation slowed. By the mid-1990s, Apple was close to bankruptcy. In 1997, Apple brought Jobs back. This time, he did not just return as a founder, he returned as a hardened innovator. Someone who has seen failure, someone who has built from scratch again, someone who understood that innovation is not about adding features, but about making bold decisions. He immediately simplified Apple's product line. He killed dozens of products and focused the company. Then came the innovations people now associate with Apple. The iMac, a computer that looked nothing like anything else on the market. Then the iPod, not the first MP3 player, but the first one that actually works beautifully. Simple controls, seamless software, a full ecosystem. Then the iPhone, the device that erased keyboards, combined phone, music, and internet, and reshaped how people interact with technology. This was not incremental improvement. This was rethinking categories from the ground up. From the outside, it looks like a dramatic comeback. From the inside, it was a long arc of an entrepreneur who never stopped innovating, even when the innovation cost him his company, his reputation, and years of uncertainty. That's the day-in-life story people forget. Not the product launches, not the keynotes, but the quiet years where the innovator keeps going while the world moves on. The same person Apple once pushed out for being too disrupted ended up returning as the only one who could save it, not by repackaging the past, but by inventing the future. It's my belief that innovation is the fuel that grows a business. There are two types of innovation: innovation in goods and services, and innovation in how the processes behind those goods and services are produced and brought to market. Innovation in processes is actually far more common than true innovation in goods and services, yet it often gets overlooked. It's no less critical, and in many cases, it is the difference between a business scaling or stalling out. One of Henry Ford's greatest innovations that reshaped the automotive industry was how he applied the assembly line to automobile production and radically improved the process. That single shift changed an entire industry without changing the core product. We've all seen companies and entire industries slowly wilt away as innovation fades and the focus shifts on repackaging the same products in slightly different ways. Innovators recognize opportunities others miss. They show up with a better product or a better way of doing things. They change industries. They get labeled disruptors. Do you need to be an innovator to run a successful business? No, most people are not wired that way. An entrepreneur does not need to be an innovator. They can still be a visionary and a risk taker without inventing something new. Many successful small businesses and startups are built by recognizing what already works and executing it well in a new market. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and in the early 2000s, drive-up coffee stands were popping up everywhere. I never really understood it at the time, but there were long lines of cars at all hours of the day. People preferred sitting in their cars and waiting over parking, walking in, and grabbing a coffee with no line. When I moved to Arizona in 2005, there were no drive-up coffee stands. Over time, that changed. People replicated what worked to fill a gap in another market. That is entrepreneurship, recognizing a need, selecting a solution, and executing a proven business model. That is a day in the life of reality for many founders. founders. Originally, there was an innovator who recognized the coffee market was saturated with walk-in shops. They did not change the product. They changed the process of how the product was delivered to the customer. That distinction matters. Many people worry that as technology and AI evolve, jobs will be lost and businesses will disappear. That's where innovators come in. Where industries become saturated or outdated, innovators create new solutions. Sometimes that's a new product, often it's a better process. Those solutions gain traction, then entrepreneurs step in and see opportunities to apply them across markets. Eventually, larger businesses or investors get involved to scale. Individual locations get acquired. The innovator often benefits from being the first to market. But innovation alone is not enough. Innovation without discipline does not work. Staying on point, executing effectively, maintaining quality standards, and building a repeatable operations are all critical. Innovation needs structure to survive. Operations without innovation stagnate. The real challenge is finding the balance where innovation and operations can both flourish. This is where many innovators struggle. They often do not thrive in corporate environments or under the constraints of turning ideas into repeatable and scalable systems. We have seen this pattern play out repeatedly, including with figures like Henry Ford and Steve Jobs. For entrepreneurs, it's important to understand who they are. Do they need the creative freedom to innovate products and processes, or are they disciplined enough to follow proven systems exactly as designed? An innovator, for example, would struggle in a franchise business model where deviating from the brand or processes is not allowed. On the other side, many large companies talk about being innovative. Most are not. Large organizations typically acquire innovation by buying smaller companies or by copying and scaling what has already been proven elsewhere. For the most part, our country and arguably the world relies on innovation coming from entrepreneurs and small businesses, from people who see different ways of doing things and are willing to try. That sounds inspiring, but being an innovator is lonely. Ideas often get dismissed. Early adopters are hard to find. Getting new innovation to the market is difficult because people do not like being early. Presidents, CEOs, banks, investors, and venture firms talk about wanting the next big thing, but in reality, they only want it once it's built, proven, and already generating serious revenue. Until then, innovators have no playbook. They build everything themselves with limited resources and no guarantees. Even great innovations fail. Even needed products disappear if they cannot get attention or run out of money. And sometimes, even with strong execution, large businesses will squash an innovation simply because it threatens their business model. That's the real story behind innovation, entrepreneurship, and the startup journey. February 28, 2024, couldn't sleep. Was up at 2 and chilly. I was puking blood on the bed all night, so I got up at 3. It's his asthma and stuff, so I got up and medicated him around 3:45 and seemed to have stopped it and went to work early. Last couple days, had to move over to working on offsite stuff again. P&Ls, accounts, and breaking down the P&Ls into the individual accounts, scanning everything, storing it, bank statements, everything, because I'm just not going to have access to this stuff in the future. So if I do get an audit situation, I need to scan, download, and retain every single thing I can. I moved it over so it's on my Ignite shared drive and saved up there and stored too. So that's important. Just going through it, I'm just reminded how I was just stressed out, and I've been listening to a sales book. And I've got all kinds of good stuff going with Renew Alert. I really miss it. Being over on the Renew Alert side now, working and building that stuff. And it kind of hit me as to why. And it's unique as a business owner, but with offsite, what was happening was I had so much expense and so much overhead and so many moving parts. I was just trying not to lose money. If I had too much, so I was trying to cover my nut every single month. Okay, got to cover this, got to do this, make this. Where's this going on? Then you have dumb moves and always costing me money making, oh, sorry, I broke the machine. I smashed the box of the truck up and me, I got a DOT violation. So that was just constantly me in a state of defensiveness with a big number every month to hit, and then trying to figure out cash flow projections, cash flow planning, all that stuff. So now what Renew Alert is, it's like I've wiped all that off, and I really don't have that much overhead. My Regis office is $700 a month. I'm paying, I think $4,000 for Sapper, which okay. And I got about $1,500 monthly recurring revenue coming in. That's it, aside from our family expenses, which we're a little bit of a negative cash flow on that. It's a whole different thing where now I'm not thinking about doing it. I'm actually proactively going after, like, okay, what if I get this in and get this in, and then get that number up above it. But it's like the runway is just different, where offsite was just always running on a short runway, big expenses. And so now it's a difference of that. And so that actually lets me enjoy and get into the business development side, which is actually really enjoyable. And I forgot about that, of innovating, lets your mind create instead of stressing on how to fix or how to cover cash flow or how to, turn something around or, fix a problem. Now I'm trying to grow a business and I'm putting my whole mindset into that. And it's just night and day. So shifting my mindset back to this, I didn't realize how unhealthy it was, but it's what I lived for so many years. And, shifting out of it for a little bit and having the satisfaction of being happy at work, part of me really does wonder, scale size is, I think revenue is bullshit. At the end of the day, it's profit. This taught me that, this shit. If I can make
$250,000, $300,000 in a year here, and I can do it with Renew Alert. It's just me working out of Regis. I don't have the problems. It's like, there's something about it to make a little thing, but doesn't necessarily have to get big and get big revenue. So that's something to think about.